Hi everyone, my name is Chinique and today I'll be doing a chapter reading from Coyote Summer, written by Laura Koerber, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Utah 2019. Her phone is ringing. I'm using the landline because the call is too important for a cell phone. I can't risk the hassless, static, weak sound or a drop call. My voice has to reach across the Rocky Mountains, across the Great Plains, and all the way to Wisconsin. And it has to reach across nearly 40 years, and who knows what changes and pain as well. She never got married. Does that mean anything? Girls who went to St. Anne's were brought up to get married. And the boys who went to St. Andrews were supposed to grow up to be captains of business or leaders of the people, like my old buddy Clint, now known as Congressman Walsh. Claire Clint and I were private school kids, raised in the belief that we were obliged to turn our expensive educations into prestigious positions in society. Actually, more than that, we were entitled to prestigious positions at the top. Clint had done that by winning his dad's seat in Congress. I didn't know anything about Claire except she'd never married and she still lived in Camden, right there in Clint's district. She must be scared. Ring, ring, ring. Is she standing by the phone, afraid to answer? I'd phoned her once before, but it was a long, long time ago. A painful conversation between strangers that I still remember with humiliation. I'm expecting this call to be painful too. Ring, ring. Maybe she isn't home, or maybe she's letting her message machine take the calls. That seems likely. Come to think of it, she's probably be getting harassing calls. Christ, harassing calls? At least mine isn't one of those. Please answer, please. Ring, ring. She isn't answering. Well, I can understand that. So I need to say something to her message machine, something that will remind her without scaring her. Maybe just tell her my name and hope. Hello? Suddenly her voice, tentative as she'd been the last time. I'm so startled that I gibber incoherently. Claire? Claire? It's Benny. I'm Benny. Silence. I can hear her breathing. Claire? I try again, afraid that she might hang up. Do you remember me? Benny from high school. I made a promise to you. She starts to cry. Chapter 2, Wisconsin, June 1983. The rule was that Camden girls were all dogs. That's what all the St. Andrews guys said. It wasn't true. Some, maybe even most, were pretty, but the guys joked about what dogs they were anyway. Camden girls went to public school, so they had to be dogs. We were all real studs, of course, healthy in body and mind, athletic, scholarly, regular attendees at church, destined to be lawyers or CEOs or congressmen, or maybe doctors, but not family practice, some high-paying specialty. We were going to pick up wives along the way from the stock available at an Ivy League college or a country club or something like that. And our wives would be pretty, at least for the first couple of years. We were going to grow up to be our parents. That was another rule. So I kind of wondered why I was checking myself out so carefully in the mirror. My hair was combed, I had no obvious zits, and I'd applied deodorant. I looked like a prep school kid. I liked looking like a prep school kid because I was a prep school kid. but something was bugging me. I wasn't very tall. Maybe that was it. Clint banged on my bedroom door, two thumbs like a code. He didn't say anything. I grabbed my jacket. It was leather, expensive, a gift from my big sister. Her idea of macho, I think, intended to make me more impressive to the female gender. I slapped my butt to make one last wallet check. As long as I had my wallet, nothing could go too badly wrong. Clint was sashaying down the hall like he lived at my house. He'd been my best friend forever, and we were always running in and out of each other's houses. I could tell by his loping, lopsided stride that he was drunk already. Him first, me behind. We galloped down the stairs. On the way to the door, we passed the archway to the main living room, the big room at the front of the house. Neither of my parents was in there, which meant they were down the hall in the den or the TV room. I leaned around the door and hollered, "Hey, I'm off!" From the depths of the house, my mom shouted back her standard, "Have fun!" Clint and I were on our way to a party. Not a party with anyone I knew. Someone had invited Clint, and Clint had invited the rest of us. By us, I meant me, Marty, and Rob. They were waiting in Clint's car, having started the party off up in Clint's room at his house with some hard liquor. I clambered into the nearly vestibule back seat, bumped shoulders with Rob, and got a noseful of aftershave. Clint stomped on the gas, and we launched ourselves upon the world with a roar from the engine of his bright red Mustang. I watched the big houses of our neighborhood flash by and morph into the brick storefronts of downtown Camden. The streets were wet and smeared with the colors of the streetlights and neon. Clint charged the yellow traffic lights and bullied his way through the bar crowd traffic. Once he got past downtown, he stomped on the gas, and we roared through a neighborhood of little white cottages, acres of them, student housing for the state university. I knew a grad of our school who lived somewhere out there in outer Slobovia. He said he wanted to be a veterinarian, but really he just didn't get very good grades at our school, so he had to go to a state U. We passed knots of students standing at the corners or walking around. Marty hollered out the window at them to be obnoxious. One group responded with peace signs, and I saw a hand raised with a joint. "Hey, they have some pot," Marty yelled over the radio. "What?" Clint yelled back. "Those townies were going to give us some pot." "Plenty where we're headed." We flew down the long slant to the river, accelerated across the bridge, and shot up the hill on the other side into the world of rural Wisconsin. Dairy farms, or some other kind of farms. Farms, anyway. I was from Camden, but I didn't know anything about farms except the obvious. They were spaced at regular intervals. Each had a very, very bright light attached to the barn, and they were fenced, because of cows, I assumed. We hurtled through the darkness. Clint always drove like a fighter pilot, swooping and swerving. He got very relaxed and fluid when drunk. And I actually was not afraid he'd killed us. I just rolled around with the turns, first me leaning into Rob, then Rob leaning into me. Then Clint braked abruptly, aimed the car between fence posts, and we bounced up a dirt road to a yard packed with cars parked every which way around a shabby farmhouse. I could tell by the vehicles that most of the kids were not from our school. Too many pickup trucks or cars that looked like they used to belong to Mom. Clint braked with a flourish, and the red Mustang came to a quivering halt, exhaling steam into the cool night air. We all disentangled ourselves and climbed out. It struck me, as Clint led the way to the front door, how much we all looked alike. I don't mean we looked like brothers. We varied in size and hair color quite a bit, from tall, blonde Clint to short, dark me. I mean we were all wearing trainers, clean jeans, and expensive jackets, the uniform for when we weren't in our school uniforms. We looked like a preppy gang. The house had a barren look. There was no landscaping except for two garbage cans not far from the front door, and a bicycle lying down in the dirt like it was dead. So, not a house like we lived in. So, not guys like us. I was the last one to the door. Clint banged his fist for entry. The music from the interior was ear-smashingly loud, even through the closed door. He banged again and decided to just go in. A tangle of dancers writhed in the middle of the living room, and yelling, laughing guys and girls were sprawled on the couch and piled all over the lazy boy chair. Most of them looked older than us, maybe even into their 20s. No one greeted us. No one did more than glance at our entry. The dining room table was covered with offerings of beer, chips and dip, and a few bottles of hard liquor, and some baggies of pot. The party was a bring your own and share. We hadn't brought anything, but that didn't slow Clint down. "Hey, what's happening, my man?" Clint went flying into the dining room, waving his arms in greeting at a surprised-looking guy in a Vikings t-shirt. I could tell from the confident way he held his beer and cigarette that surprised guy was not a high school student. He kind of tossed his hair back with a shake of his head and stepped out of his group of friends. "Hey, Clint! Great party, man! Hey, I brought some friends." The three of us shuffled forward. Surprised guy, I learned later that his name was Ronnie, waved some of his friends over, and an awkward exchange got underway, with everyone eyeing everyone else while Clint's eye roamed the choices in liquor. A skinny girl in an oversized sweatshirt asked me if I was from the prep school. I said yes. She had a pleasant face, not too much makeup, and her name was Carol. Clint grabbed the bottles for all of us. I felt awkward and out of place, so I asked Carol if she liked to dance. She shrugged, but headed for the living room, and I followed. We danced a bit, her feeling obliged, I think, and me just trying to fit in. She slid away after one dance and left me in the living room with all those kids I didn't know. I could hear Clint in the kitchen, laughing and being the life of the party. For lack of anything better to do, I got another beer. So I hung on the fringes of a conversation at the kitchen table, and then hung on the fringes of some other conversations in other rooms, and drank some more beers. I got the party figured out. It was mostly for college students. Ronnie and some friends lived there, and the rest were friends of friends of friends of friends of friends of friends. None were frat rats or sorority sisters for some reason. I didn't ask anyone why not. My sister was in a sorority, and I planned to get into a frat when I went to Yale. Yeah, I had my acceptance letter already. I was going to Yale. Not like these kids at this party. They were going to the State U. Then I felt bad about that though, that thought. A few beers later, I felt a little more comfortable, and I fell into conversation with a girl with long blonde hair. Her name was Claire, and she was wearing pink lipstick and a cute pink tube top. She was pretty tipsy, judging by her giggles, but she was easy to be around because she talked a lot, mostly going on and on about her horse. "Her name is Susie," Claire informed me. Well, her real name is Forest Lakes Suzanne's Shadow, but I call her Susie. That's quite a name, I said. She's a registered warm blood. I tried to frame a question about that because aren't all horses warm-blooded? But Claire didn't give me a chance to speak. I'm riding her in the state level dressage finals this year. We're working really hard on the full school figures. Uh-huh, I mumbled, trying to show interest, even though I had no idea what she was talking about. Her conversation was really hard to follow. Or maybe I was confused because of the marijuana smoke. I hadn't smoked any, but the air was fogged with it. Besides, I was distracted by an intense debate with myself about whether her hair was her mane or her tail. She definitely had a horsey way of tossing it around. Then, abruptly, she announced, "I think I need the bathroom." She did a sort of curtsy like she was embarrassed and stumbled off somewhere. That sucks, I thought, feeling stupid. Probably she cut out because she didn't want to hang with some dumb kid who just stood there with his mouth open and couldn't hold up his end of the conversation. But that was me at parties. I was always the one standing around silently while other people talked. So I went for another drink and ended up with a shot glass of battery acid and some hits of a pipe from a kid who told me all about what a Bee Gees fan he was. I couldn't relate to that, but I didn't want to seem critical, so I just nodded, which was a mistake since the whole room nodded with me. I escaped from him and found myself on the fringes of a debate about which of the required freshman year classes sucked the most. I got another shot of battery acid, which seriously gave me the staggers, and I had to pee too. So I went to find the girl from earlier, the horsey girl, because she knew where the bathroom was. I found Ronnie in the living room, presiding over a circle of laughing guys. I stumbled up, steadied myself with a hand on his shoulder and asked, "Hey, do you know where that girl is? The one with the long blonde hair?" That really struck Ronnie as funny for some reason. After he got done laughing, he waved one arm grandly and bowed. "Later, lads, got to take my friend here upstairs." He was definitely drunk too. I was seriously afraid I might pee on myself, but I hauled myself up the stairs by hanging on the railing. Ronnie led me down a short hall. Two guys were in line outside a closed door. "Here you go, cowboy." Ronnie had his affected way of putting an accent like that made him cool or something. The two guys laughed. The door opened and Clint swung out, zipping up his pants. He saw me, grabbed me and pulled me toward the door. He said something to the two guys about me jumping the line, and suddenly I was in a dark room. Clint leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "Rock and roll." Then he clapped me on my back and left me standing in the dark. I swayed on my feet, disoriented. The room was not a bathroom. It was too big and didn't smell right. I slapped the wall in a futile attempt to find the light switch and nearly lost my balance. So I gave up and just tried to see in the dark. A window in the far wall let in a shaft of yellow light that fell on the floor. I could dimly make out the dark shapes of a dresser and a king-size bed. There was a door on the wall near me. Maybe a closet or a bathroom. Okay, I could stagger over and pee if it was a bathroom, and then I heard a moan. That's when the smell penetrated my drunkenness. A sticky, icky sting, like soiled underwear mixed with the damp smell of sweat. My first thought was of old clothes, like clothes left too long on the floor of the bathroom. But the smell was coming from the bed. Another moan. Then the moan turned into a gurgle, and the gurgle turned into gagging and coughing. With horror, I realized that someone was on the bed and choking on vomit. I lurched over to the bed and began frantically patting with my hands, trying to find the person. I thumped along the coverlet until I hit wet, cold skin. Oh God, a naked girl. She was flat on her back in the middle of the bed. Her head was flopped to one side and she was puking. I didn't want to touch a naked girl, but I'd heard somewhere that people could choke to death on puke. So I grabbed her shoulder and pulled her over on her side. The coughing turned into retching, and a chunky soup of vomit erupted out of her mouth onto the sheets. Her whole body shook with the heaves. She kept shaking and heaving until I realized that her vomiting had turned into soggy sobs. She was crying. Her hair was tangled over her face and stringy with vomit. Her bra was pushed up so her boobs were out there, and I bumped one with my arm by accident. That terrified me. I was not supposed to be around a naked girl. She was not supposed to be naked at all. Reaching across her, I grabbed a handful of coverlet and yanked it part way over her body. I shook her shoulder and whispered, "Hey, want to get up? Get to the bathroom and get dressed?" She muttered something. I tried again. "I'll help you. Let's get to the bathroom," and she took a feeble swat at my hand and mumbled, "Go away." "You want me to go away?" She didn't answer. I shook her shoulder again, but she didn't respond. She'd passed out again. That's when I started thinking about the smell, sticky, gooey, the smell of crotch. The guys had been having sex with her. I jumped to my feet so fast that I put myself into a stagger and bumped into the dresser, and something fell on the floor and broke, like a dish or an ashtray. It broke and I stepped on it to get away, smashing whatever was under my foot. They'd been having sex with that girl, and I had broken something. I had to get out there. I fumbled my way across what seemed like an acre of darkness before running into the door. I felt around for the doorknob, opened the door, and stumbled into the ferocious glare of the lighted hallway.